All right, guys, I'm going to go through a little overview of the summative. Hopefully, if you have been coming to class and you did days 19 and 20 in notebook yourself and didn't just copy and paste them, you have some idea, and this won't be as confusing to you. If you haven't actually did days 19 and 20 and you haven't come to class and participated in any or listened to any of my presentations in the live meetings, you're probably pretty confused. So you are going to do what is called a raft to make a primary source. A raft assignment, you choose a role, who you're going to be when you make this primary source. Are you going to be King George? Are you going to be an Indian farmer? Who are you going to be? You decide the audience your primary source is for. You decide the format. What kind of source is it going to be? What is the format of it? It's going to be a letter, a political cartoon. There's more directions on this inside the summative, but I'm just giving a brief overview first. And you decide the topic. If you're an Indian farmer, you can talk about how you had to stop farming rice or other crops and how you had to start farming cotton or something like that. What is the topic? Your farming methods, whatever. A battle, something like that. Okay, now these are important instructions for you to look at when you click Unit 4 Primary Source Raft Assignment. It says you will have all classes next week to work on summative. That's this week. The summative has the criterion on the first pages and the assignment you complete on the last pages. So the whole thing is right here in this document. The criterion and then the assignment is after that. So you're going to have to make the source, a letter, a political cartoon, something like that, and do an OPVL for it. An OPVL is meant to evaluate the sources you use for whatever project you're doing. So this project, you're making a primary source yourself, but you're going to look at what ideas are available, right, to make your source. What are things that people are saying? And then you're going to do an OPVL on that. I want you to do a very small OPVL, a couple sentences. Don't go overboard. In fact, I'm going to take points off if you go overboard. Okay. So down here it says refer to days 19 and 20 in notebook for ideas. If you did these yourself, you will remember that this whole, starting from here, both of these days are nothing but primary sources, right? Here are 3 primary sources that you can get for ideas. You can choose something he talked about, something he talked about, something he talked about, and include them in your ideas because you're supposed to be representing ideas that existed at this time. Remember, for this summative, what we've been studying is perspectives that existed on imperialism. You're not going to know this if you didn't participate in class. Okay, and here's another one. It's a political cartoon. Like I said, you can make a political cartoon if you want. You can draw it or take a picture of it or however you want to make it. Day 20. This one has lots of primary sources. Here's one, all these ideas. These are people. We have an American president talking about imperialism. We have cartoons here. There's that cartoon again. Here's another one, political cartoon. Here's another one. I have a poem here that was written. And then I have another poem here that was written. So you could even do poems, whatever, and you can collect ideas. I want you to show ideas that existed at this time. Okay, so now to get ideas for who you're going to be and maybe events in history or some things that were happening, I have a textbook link right here. So if I click that, you will see a chapter on the age of imperialism, which is what we're studying. And I'll show you different countries that have been conquered. Now, this one starts talking about what happened in Africa. If you want to do something in Africa, you could review through it. This one talks about the conquering of the Congo, and it has some people that it talks about. King Leopold. Maybe you could be somebody that was exploited by King Leopold. So you could look through here and get some ideas of who you want to be and what specific events you want to talk about. But you don't have to read this whole chapter. You can just go through and say, oh, maybe I'll do something in Africa and look through there. There's some other things. We have the Zulu warriors who fought the British, and they were very victorious and brave, actually, or very successful at times. But anyway, and then so you can go down. Here's one about Nigeria, different ways they can controlled. So this is all about Africa. Now we have in Muslim lands. So we have Ottoman Empire. We have Egypt, Persia. We have India. So you can go through, choose a country and read a little bit about what's going on there, so you can get ideas of the background and what your role could be. Here's Asia. America was very imperialistic. Here's all the things we did. We take the Philippines, we take Hawaii. All right. So you can go through and decide, get some ideas of who you want to be and what is the specific thing that's happening that you're talking about. So now let's open the summative. Microsoft has changed the way summatives open. They always open now as read only, because a lot of people were having problems where they would open a document twice and then the blank one would save over the one they fill out. You guys have done that a few times. So now it's read only. You can't type in it unless you go up here. A lot of times you should have something that says edit or edit document, or you can go here and you can download it, edit it, then you attach it to the assignment later. So I'm going to edit in browser. All right. So survival of the fittest. Primary source raft, right? Goal. What are you going to do? You're going to create a primary source that illustrates pro or anti-perspective on imperialism. So you're going to make a source that shows you're for imperialism or against it. You will be assuming either the role of a pro-imperialist or anti-imperialist. So you decide who you're going to be. Now, obviously, this person will be for imperialism or against them. Audience, are you going to write a letter to somebody who is that person? Are you going to give a speech? Are you making a political cartoon that's going to go in a newspaper, and the audience would be the public of England? Situation, you need to understand the practice of imperialism during the new imperialism. So days 19 and 20, you had introductory videos that explained everything. I gave 2 little lessons about it live. So if you join those, hopefully you'll understand. Also known as, and how to apply primary source information to compose a product that illustrates a promoted imperialism worldview, which is anti. And what is your product? A primary source that embodies a pro or anti. So D, we are going to be doing an OPVL and this criterion that talks about identifying different perspectives. Okay, and that is where you're going to show either a pro or anti. You're looking at the perspective that existed at that time. Now, here is where you actually start to fill things out. The raft. And I have an example in this column. I did this myself. We have instructions, what you do for the role. Here's my examples. And then you write yours here for your primary source. Who are you going to be? Who are you from this time period? Are you a famous person like Cecil Rhodes or King Leopold? Or are you a person from the general public, such as a middle-class Indian citizen from Mumbai? I decided to be Cecil Rhodes, who was a huge, rich, wealthy British man who conquers large parts of Africa. Okay, he makes a country called Rhodesia, which is today's Zimbabwe. Those people overthrew the British Empire, but he conquered an area and actually named the country after himself, Rhodesia. So you decide who you're going to be and you type it here. Audience, who is the source for? Write it here. You can read all this yourself. Format, poem. I'm talking about a real source here, but of course you're going to make up your own. I'm going to pretend I'm this guy who's making a poem for the British public. Why am I making it? Because I want to inspire British people to support imperialism. So you have to figure out what is the topic, what's the subject. Your primary source. So after you write all these things about what your primary source is going to be, you need to put it right here. You either type it, or if you drew a political cartoon with your own hands, you could take a picture and put it right here. Right? Now, the OPVL on it. When you looked over sources yourself to get ideas of the perspectives from the time period, because you have to show real perspectives. You can't make up your own. You need to look at different sources from day 19 and 20 or research on the internet and find other sources. Choose one of those sources. And I have an example of what I want. This is an 8 example. So for OPVLs, it's not supposed to be longer. It's not supposed to be very long. Okay? So here I give the origin. The origin of the primary source is McClure's magazine, published in 1899, written by Rudyard Kipling. Okay? I'm showing my source for one of my sources that I used to make, that I referenced to make my thing, and includes, I have the instructions here and I have my example here, and you type right underneath my example. This should not take you too long. Why the source was written. The purpose of Rudyard Kipling's poem was to romanticize and influence the public to support British imperialism. Now, includes the value of how this source was helpful in learning more. More about your topic. How did you use it? And then talk about either the origin or purpose. So the source was helpful to my research because it illustrated pro-imperialist viewpoints. I need ideas. If I'm going to be a pro-imperialist, I need ideas of what to talk about. So this showed me some things that people were saying, I said. This source did. So that's how I used it. How did I use it? Now, the purpose made it a biased source. However, that was helpful for my project because I needed to be biased about the same thing. Again, this is an 8. Limitations. So why did I need other sources? What else did I need to know that this source couldn't help me? I said it doesn't give background information on what was happening at the time period that I wanted to use. It didn't, and then you have to talk about the origin or purpose. I said the origin of a popular magazine also made it a limited source as to learning about the history of imperialism, okay? Because it was published during that time period, so I can't really get a good overview of what was happening because people didn't even completely know themselves. You have to reflect back on history after it happens. So anyway, I have examples and everything there. I do not want longer responses than this. Okay?